Hey, welcome back to Event Answer. Today I want to show you how to make this gorgeous balloon garland attached to an arch frame. I'll walk you step by step through the entire process and share my best garland making tips. To start off, we need to make a quad out of 3 11-inch balloons and 1 17-inch balloon. Now I'm going to inflate these 2 at a time, making sure my 17-inch balloon is always on the trigger side of my balloon inflator, so once the 11-inch balloon reaches its full size, I can continue to fill the 17-inch until it's filled as well. Then I'm going to let a little bit of air out of each of them, press them down against the table so they're nice and round, and then tie them together in a pair. I'm going to wrap one nozzle around the other one twice, and then tie them together in a simple knot. This is so much faster than tying each balloon individually and then tying them together into a pair. Now I'm going to create one more pair using 2 11-inch balloons that I'll inflate anywhere between 6 and 10 inches in size. It's this variation of balloon sizes that will give our garland an organic look. Now once I've got these 2 balloons tied together in a pair, I'm going to take both of my pairs and overlap them so that the nozzles touch right in the center, and then twist one balloon from each of those pairs around each other, locking them into a quad. I'm going to repeat these steps until I have 3 quads in each of my colors, with the exception being my sand colored balloons, which only come in 11-inch and 24-inch balloons. So I'm going to inflate one 24-inch balloon to add to the end of my garland, but you could choose another color that did have 11 and 17-inch balloons in it. Now once I've fully inflated this balloon, I'm going to tie the nozzle off, and then to that nozzle I'm going to tie an empty 260 balloon around the knot. This 260 balloon will allow me to tie the large balloon into the garland later on really easily. To give our garland some texture, I'm going to inflate these 5-inch balloons to 4 pumps of air each using my hand pump. This is about 4.5 inches in diameter. Then I'm going to wrap the nozzle of that balloon under one of my fingers that's holding the hand pump while I inflate a second balloon to the exact same size. Then I'll tie these 2 balloons together into a pair, and then those 2 pairs into a quad, just like we did earlier. I ended up making 3 quads in each of my 4 colors, but you could always add more if you'd like extra texture. Now it's time to finally tie all our balloons together into a garland. I'm going to do that using an empty 260 balloon that I'm going to stretch all the air out of and tie a second 260 to that nozzle. You could also use fishing line or curling ribbon to tie all your balloons together. So I'm going to take the end of this 260 balloon and tie it to one of the nozzles in the first quad. Once I've got that secured, I'm going to grab my second quad and lay it right on top of my first one, stretch that 260 balloon nice and tight, and wrap it in a figure 8 pattern around a couple of the balloons in that new quad before bringing it back to the center. Grab your next quad and nestle it right against the previous one, pull that 260 tight, and wrap it in a figure 8 around a couple of the new balloons. Then I'm going to repeat this process down the length of the garland. As I add quads, I want to pay attention to the placement of my colors, alternating between light and dark colors and mixing up how many quads of the same color I'm putting next to each other. So right in the center of my garland, I've done a single white quad, so I don't have too much of a pattern forming by only using 2 quads of the same color. After adding my 9th quad to the garland, I took the remaining 260 tail and wrapped it in a figure 8 pattern a couple times around that final quad, and then tucked the remaining tail into the garland, which will hold everything in place. Now that the main body of our garland is created, we need to hang it up, and instead of hanging it on a wall, I'm going to hang it on this gold arch frame that's 6 feet tall and about 2.5 feet wide. By securing our balloon garland to a frame like this, we can place it anywhere in our event space, and our focal point won't be limited to where it can be placed on a wall. I'm going to hold the garland in front of the frame, approximately where I think I want it to be, and then I'm going to press the garland into the frame, taking 2 balloons that are touching the frame, pulling them around it, and twisting those 2 balloons around each other, locking the garland to that side of the frame. I'm then going to move down to the bottom right side of the garland, hold it about where I want in front of the frame, and repeat that process. Then I'm going to go along and rotate the balloon quads around until I'm happy with their general placement. Because I'm tying the balloons in and not using adhesives to hold them in place, I can tweak the overall shape of this design up until the very end. Now it's time to widen the garland, and I'm going to add in all my remaining balloon quads and attach them using rubber bands. So if you slip a rubber band over one of the balloons in the quad, we can then use that to slip around a balloon that's already in the balloon garland to hold it in place. So I'm going to take this quad over to my garland and put it right next to a balloon quad of a similar color, stretch the rubber band over a balloon that's already in the garland, and that will secure the new quad into our garland. My aim as I add these new quads quads in is to make the overall garland look really wide from the front. So a lot of times I'll rotate the quads around until I find the perfect spot where they give the most impact before securing them to the garland. Now once I've got all of my quads attached, I'm going to add that 24-inch sand-colored balloon to the bottom. I'm going to nestle the nozzle right into the garland and then stretch that 260 balloon around either the frame or a couple of the balloons right next to that nozzle, wrapping it in a figure 8 pattern to secure it in place. Then you can just let that 260 go and it'll disappear into the garland. Once I'm happy with the placement of all my larger balloons, it's time to introduce the tiny balloon quads we made earlier. I'll be securing these in place using the rubber band method once again, but because there's so many of these to add into the garland, a hack to make this process go faster is to slip a bunch of rubber bands over your wrist that we can quickly and easily pull onto those tiny quads as we add them into the garland. So anywhere you might have a gap in your garland where you need to hide some of the internal workings or somewhere you want to add more texture and color, that's where you want to place your tiny quads. So visualize where you want it to be, then look for a balloon nearest with that spot, slip the rubber band over it, and then you can play with the placement of those tiny balloons. Here you can see me using the rubber band hack and see how quick it is to just pull it right off my wrist over the balloon that's in that hand, and that allows me to quickly place a bunch of these little clusters into my garland without having to dig through a bag of rubber bands every time I want to add a balloon cluster. As you near the end of your balloon build, it's important to take a couple steps back and look at the overall design as a whole. This will allow you to see if the shape of the garland is to your liking, if there are any gaps that need covering, or anywhere that looks a little too plain. These insights will allow you to place those final clusters before the party begins. Now this garland is ready for a celebration. If you found today's tips helpful, boop that like button so other people can learn about these tips as well. If you're looking for a similar project, you should check out this video next. So until the next time I see you, remember, stay creative everyone!